你好吗？我们为了来的，我们是中国现在 China Now, with your gang of two, Nan-Su, who is the senior investigative reporter for Epoch Times, and yours truly, Michael Olson, who's been a big fan of watching China from a distance for a long time, since I studied Chinese and learned that I was just not going to be welcome there. So I've been watching from afar and still am. I guess you're watching from afar now too, Don Sue. Is that true?
Yep, I'm watching it too. Hopefully, I think the free world will pay enough attention to what's going on there so we can avoid a war. We can defend the peace with our own strength.
Amen. And we have to be steadfast in that resolve to avoid that war. You know, Nansu, I was raised up in the state of Montana, which is right below Canada. And so grew up seeing Canadian people as my next door neighbor, as it were, up there in the frozen north. But and we've always seemed to be good friends through the years. But it seems to be we seem to be coming at a little bit of a loggerheads over China and a bunch of other issues since uh, Donald Trump came to office. And he pointed to Canada and said, "It's time for you to carry your weight." And so I think the Canadian people are kind of bridling at that and looking for some emotional support, as it were, from the CCP. Do you think the CCP will give them that shoulder to cry on?
Well, whatever they do, I hope they just do it right. It's uh, CCP. I don't think um they're going to be good to the Canada. I think that the people in Canada are supposed to realize that that's a communist nation. What do they expect?
Mhm. Well, you know, it was Pierre Trudeau who really opened up China for the Canadian people and was a big fan of Edgar Snow and Red Star over China and was completely enamored with the revolution of Mao Zedong and went to visit him and was a big fan of the Chinese Communist Party, and his son Justin Trudeau was as well. So, and I guess we've kind of just ignored that, but maybe that's coming to a place where we have to pay attention to our next door neighbor and its affinity for the Chinese Communist Party and
Yep.
what that could possibly mean in the geopolitics of our world, uh, because we are still next door neighbors when it gets right down to it. So I guess it was, you know, the Canadians are looking at the new Trump administration and they're seeing that our relationship is conditional, transactional, impersonal, and frequently unpredictable, and just not sure of what kind of ground they're standing on with President Trump because he keeps hard to pin down. And that's something.
Well, I think that what Trump did was really trying to what Trump did is really try to um, make Canadians on our side, to have Canadians uh, pay for their defense. I think that's what comes to.
Good, yeah. Pay up, play, ante up to play in this game. Well, contrary to that story about Canadians being overly friendly to the CCP, former Royal Canadian Mounted Police investigator and chief anti-money laundering officer Gary Clement said in a December 6th forum event at Toronto City Hall the following. The PRC government, Chinese Communist Party, is the biggest transnational organized crime group ever seen in the world today, bar none. Clement told the audience that the CCP directs diaspora communities, cultural groups, and business chambers abroad while monitoring, suppressing, and intimidating dissidents who speak out against China. This is going on in China on a daily basis, and one would suspect here as well. So the there is recognition coming about that China is uh, on the move, and it is moving with its united front, which is designed to, in all respects, fight for China's interests. And that's what he's suggesting. But he calls it a transnational, what did he call it? Transnational organized crime group. Is it?
Well, I usually call it the Chinese government as the biggest terrorist organization in the whole world. That's how I call them. I don't call them transnational. I think they are actually the terrorist groups.
Do you think that the Chinese Communist Party did not know what was going on with the Prince Group and other groups like it in Cambodia?
How to say?
It's hard to say. But as the
Yeah.
biggest transnational organized crime group, it would seem like they would know what the competition's up to. They wouldn't want to miss out on all that money. At any rate, at least there are some Canadians that are speaking up and saying, "Hey, wait a minute." Now, with respect to the world's biggest organized crime syndicate, there's a report just out that the China's trade surplus has topped $1 trillion as of November, breaking the full year record set in 2024 as an outpouring of cheap products floods the global markets amid sluggish demand at home. So the story is that China has focused all of its energy on making things and very little of it on consuming things because they know that to make the money that they have to earn more than they spend. And right now their surplus is $1 trillion. Great.
I don't believe the number actually. I believe the number it somehow make up. Uh, it doesn't work that way. It just uh, the number doesn't the number just doesn't add up.
So you think it's not $1 trillion? Well, they're not making as much off the United States as they were, that's for sure.
Uh-huh.
The numbers here have been going down. China's trade surplus dropped a million, yes. Overall sales abroad surged 5.9% in US dollar terms. So the money, what they're doing is they're pumping out everything to other countries other than the United States because our trade surplus has been going down, or trade deficit with China has been going down. But the rest of the world, it's been going up. So, in many respects, what's happening is that China is using the rest of the world to make up for the US. And the question is, will the rest of the world uh, sit still while China hollows them out as it hollowed the US out?
It depends. Economic situation, it's not that easy to be assessed. Um, First of all, there's a report this just last week. It says actually we loan we get more loans from China than any other nation in the world. So it's interesting,
That's the
how
United States gets more loans from China than any other.
yeah,
Yeah.
than any other nations. Uh, the from 2003 to 2022, that the war actually, the Chinese government actually long like about 2.2 trillion dollars long to the world, and about $200 billion of them were long to the United States. So we are living beyond our means, basically.
So we're living beyond our means. We have to borrow money to pay the bills. Who's lending us the money to pay our bills? China. And where does China get the money to lend us to pay our bills? From us, of course. And so that is the cycle that we have grown into in our dependence on China, is that we need them to lend us the money they have earned selling us stuff so that we can pay our bills.
Well, there's a lot of projects. The research indicate actually, um, many of our infrastructure projects that were built, from the based on the loan from China.
So we borrow the money and build the stuff.
Yeah, and then I hope I say, there's more need to be investigated. What kind of money we loan from China, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully, in the past that uh, there are investigations showing that we try to use resources from China to do some research or scientific research projects, even to help our military and defense and intelligence community. I hope those loans, from China, uh, not related to our
Defense. Yeah.
the defense industry, or maybe our intelligent community. Uh, Boy, it's scary.
So it's scary because if, like anything else China does, the money it gives you has strings attached.
Yep,
And if we're going to loan you the money, we want the information too. We want to be part of the information that the research shows. So
yep,
there it is. If you give them all the information, pretty soon you're like the automobile manufacturers. You're going to find yourself out of business. And so, speaking of that being out of business, that brings up the visit of French President Emmanuel Macron and his First Lady to Beijing, where they were
uh-huh,
featured by
yep.
Xi Jinping and Peng Liyuan.
They were
So
like body bodies. Xi Jinping actually keeping a company, keeping Macron to Chengdu, the capital city of Sichuan province. So Xi Jinping was showing him around, with a lot of hospitality.
they are pouring it on. But Macron was really there to tell Xi Jinping to stop picking on him. In the respect that this is part of a speech he gave or a joint news conference. Europe and China have a role to play in laying alongside other partners the foundations for fair and robust global economic governance based on rules and not the law of the strongest. Macron said the European Union should undertake reforms to enhance its competitiveness. China, he said, should work to boost domestic consumption while increasing its direct investment in the EU, particularly France. So invest in us. But what Macron is really saying is that stop selling all your stuff here. Because,
I hope he try to actually. I hope Macron actually do what actually does what he's saying. Uh, you know, why you're going to China? You know that's what they do to you, right?
yeah, everybody knows that it's going to happen because the evidence is everywhere in the world now.
Yep.
So Macron goes there and says, stop selling all your stuff here because you're destroying our industries. Now, do you think Xi Jinping is prone to stop selling stuff in France?
No
No,
way. They
no.
want to sell everything. They want to sell everything. To if they could, they will sell everything to France and Europe.
And to the United States too.
Yep, and to the United States too.
But there does appear to be a significant amount of global pushback going on. Um, at least here in the United States, we have the Trump administration who's implementing tariffs to correct decades of trade imbalances with China. And as a consequence of what Trump is doing, other countries around the world are starting to pay attention and pushed back a little bit on China's strategy of expanding exports at the expense of other countries' industries. So, can Xi Jinping pull this strategy off? I mean, he's got $1 trillion trade imbalance now. He's on a roll. But as he keeps hollowing out these other countries and taking away their industry, as he has here in the United States, sooner or later they're going to have to do something or just lose their economies entirely. So that's going to be something that pushback is going to come sometime. So you see Macron traveling to Beijing and essentially begging Xi Jinping to stop selling all of his stuff. And Xi Jinping can stop because he needs the money. And that's all he has going is production and no consumption. Why aren't Chinese people buying stuff like American people buy stuff, Nansu?
Chinese people are not buying any stuff at all
Why is that?
because China is in deflection.
And so people don't have money.
That's right.
And for what I've seen of the Chinese domiciles, there's not a lot of place to have stuff. This is something that I saw back in my Vietnam War days when I was riding trains about Japan. And this was not that long after World War II. Uh, in the trains, you could kind of look into people's houses and you could see they lived very simple lives. There wasn't a lot of stuff. There wasn't any room for stuff. Um, and here in the United States, we all love our stuff. And I suspect the Japanese have come to love stuff a little more than when I visited there. But what do you do with all the stuff? And that's what China's going to be faced with is that they're going to run out of places to sell their stuff. And then what?
Well, it's a crazy idea to make it China. Think about the idea itself. It's just completely crazy. They want to, make it China to become the manufacturer, the factory of the whole world. I
Exactly.
mean, that's a completely crazy idea because if China manufacture everything to feed the world, then how other people going to live? Where the other part of the world that people going to find their job, right? But that's what they're doing. They have been doing that for all these years.
And people are starting to wake. I think Trump was the first one to wake up and say, enough, we have to do something. And because we're the buyers of all this stuff, he had some leverage. Um, and if you don't have leverage with the Chinese Communist Party, you're in no position to negotiate. You have to have something to sell. And so that was the situation there. We're going to pick that story up when we come back from this break here. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to China Now with Don Su and Michael Olson. Today we're picking through the news stories and the gossip too. And sometimes it's really hard to tell the difference because sometimes there isn't any difference between the news and the gossip. It's very hard to read it all and wonder in what comes out of China because the Chinese Communist Party maintains an absolute control over the press and the stories that are told, and they take great care to make certain that the stories that do come out paint the CCP in a very favorable light. It's kind of just the opposite we have here in the United States, where our press takes great joy in berating the federal government and telling everybody what's wrong with it. And just about exactly the opposite. So we pick up these stories and we put them on the table and we say China now, friend or foe, war or peace. And it's always difficult to answer the last question, war or peace, because in fact, we've often talked about how the fact that is we've been at war with China for 30 years, never even knew it. But they knew it, and they used that time to build a lot of strength. So we're going to pick up more stories and to talk a little bit about China in our South America, which I use the word our, but it's not really our, but it's our backyard, just like Canada. So do stay tuned. We will be right back after these messages.
When you need help managing the legal affairs of your family, call on the Angel.
Hello, I am attorney Angel Hess, and I am ready to help. Whether you need a prenuptial agreement or divorce settlement, need child or spousal support, or are facing custody issues or visitation rights, I will help you. I have more than 7 years' experience as a family law attorney.
When you need help, call on the Angel. Attorney Angel L. Hess at santacruzlegal.net.
Get hooked up with affordable cannabis at your locally owned Hook Outlet, where everybody above the age of 21 can participate in the Hook's loyalty program. Each purchase earns you 2% store credit on your next purchase. Get hooked up with the best cannabis at affordable prices at the Hook Outlet in Capitola and Watsonville, or order online at hookoutlet.com. Get hooked up at the Hook.
Attention investors. This is a simple commercial on the investment value of gold. Gold continues to make new highs. In good markets and in bad markets, you need to have your portfolio balanced with gold. Learn about owning physical gold or getting a gold-backed IRA. Make this simple call right now.
800-414-1657. 800-414-1657. That's 800-414-1657.
Sponsored by Reagan Gold.
It's time now to repair or replace your roof. Hi, folks. Warren Knox here of Knox Roofing. Well, we install leak-proof and fire-proof roofs. Roofs that look nice with a lot of choices of colors and styles. Gutters, skylights, insulation, and roof decks. We only install proven products with warranties unmatched by anybody. Financing is always available, and we have discounts for veterans and seniors. Do business with Knox Roofing, and you'll also receive a free Knox Garden Box. The number to call again is 831-461-0634. Thanks, folks.
Woman with a lighter, woman 是中国现在 China Now with Nansu and Michael Olson and you. You know, before we went to the break, we were talking quite a bit about China's pivot to away from the United States because the United States is putting a lot of tariffs on everything. So they got to figure out what else to do with all their stuff because that's what China does is makes stuff. It makes a lot of stuff. It is the manufacturer to the world. And a lot of that was given to them by us, the ability to make stuff. We taught them how to make stuff, and they had cheap labor at the time, so they made a lot of stuff and got rich and very rich. And now their trade imbalance with the world is they're up $1 trillion on the world. So the world
I
is
think
giving,
that number has some problems. I don't
I
see
know.
how they can actually make that much surplus this year, because
Well,
it's
the
very
only
hard for them. They probably manufacture as much as last year, but by selling the things we don't buy, they sell to the like I look at the number. They say the China's export to Africa grew 26%. I mean, the problem is, if they're dumping their goods to Africa, they're not really making much. I mean,
not
they
much.
make one spoon in China, they can sell the spoon here in the United States, let's say $2, even $3. But if they go to sell this spoon in Africa, they probably going to sell it at the price of what, 30 cents or 40
30 cents.
cents?
And not only that, in selling it so cheap, they're going to put all the local merchants out of business.
Yeah, that locals are going to hate them, right? And I don't know how that's going to work, but I don't believe the number of 1 trillion surplus that China had. So that's what they say. They say 1 trillion surplus because their total exports is 3.4 trillion. Their total import is two. I'm sorry. Total export 3.4 trillion and total import is 2.3 trillion. That make like close to 1.1 trillion. I don't think it's there. I think they lie about it.
No, I don't believe they would lie. My goodness sakes. But you never know because you just don't know. It doesn't seem to make any sense, does it? That they would lose their principal customer, the customer that pays the premium price. And
Yeah,
then,
see, just think about they are willing to get rid of America as their American consumer market, and just because they want their ideology
yep,
to be successful, so they're willing to sell the products instead of selling to American consumers. They're going to sell these products to African consumers.
and then,
That just tells you how crazy they are. That's basically, I say, this is a religious war.
yeah,
This is not war that actually make any sense economically.
well, it does to them because it's survival. They have no choice. There is nothing else they can do. They must sell stuff because they don't buy stuff themselves and they make a lot of stuff. So if they don't sell the stuff, they'll drown in the stuff. It'll pile up to such an extent that they'll have no place to live. So they have to sell stuff. And so they have to, the only ones left that they can dump the stuff on is, well, Europe, South America. Uh, but Europe's starting to rebel. And you can see the riots in Africa. They're starting
Well,
to rebel.
Europe still try to talk to them, right? That's why European leaders doesn't get it. All these European leaders, like Germany, is still invested a tremendous amount of money building several biggest chemical plants in China, and they're using the oils from Russia, and so they can manufacture the chemical stuff in China. And this, you think about, if it does that make sense? I mean, all these European leaders, I think they're crazy.
And they can't manufacture in Germany because they don't have any electricity left because they closed all of their coal burning power plants and their
Yeah, it's
nuclear.
because see, they're not buying oils from Russia because they have all these Ukraine war going on. Then they go to China and then build a factory in China, and they buy the Russian oil to send those Russian oil to China to make a chemical stuff. You know, any way you think about it, it's just the Germans are crazy.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of Germans wondering what the heck they're up to. That's for sure. What happened to us here? Why are we going through this? So, okay, let's turn our attention to the South America and talk about what was it, the United Nations Climate Summit they had in Brazil. So this is all very interesting because China has become the big cheese of the United Nations Climate Summit. And so they put on the biggest show possible with the biggest displays and the most giveaways of panda bears, toy stuffed animals, of course. But for more than 50 years, the CCP was a star of the United Nations Annual Climate Summit. Between making deals to export more green things and providing global leadership, the CCP was clearly calling the shots to the environmental community in Brazil. But as US President Donald Trump famously warned on Twitter back in 2012, the global warming narrative was created by and for the Chinese in order to make US manufacturing non-competitive. And they did just that. Were you here, Nansu, in the Silicon Valley area when Barack Obama came to Silicon Valley and presented Solyndra with a big check for many millions of dollars? You remember that?
I don't. When was that?
Well, it was during the first part of the Obama first administration. He came to Silicon Valley and handed Solyndra all of this cash to build photovoltaic cells, uh, solar arrays. They had a new kind of solar array that they were going to be building here. But so they had set up a manufacturing plant in Silicon Valley to make solar arrays. And of course, this was probably really quite amusing to the CCP because the CCP set up the green industry manufacturing hub of the world. And like everything else, they started out manufacturing things like solar arrays and charged very little money for them. That meant nobody could compete with them. So, and Solyndra was a perfect example of that in Silicon Valley. They built a big, beautiful manufacturing facility up by the Tesla plant up there on 580, and it lasted like a year or something, maybe 2 or 3 years. I don't know. It didn't take them long before they burned through all of Obama's money, and poof, they're out of business. And poof, the Chinese Communist Party now owns the green technology of the world. The windmills, the solar arrays, and so on and so on and so on. They own that world. And now at the conference of the parties, COP30, they called it, um, everything was CCP. The Chinese Communist Party even donated a hideous dragon jaguar guardian spirit statue that was complete with devil horns and so on. Ooh. So it really completely dominated the world of green technology and the COP30 summit. So it's such an irony that the country that produces more pollution than anywhere, any place on Earth, is the champion of green energy. And it seems like everybody except Donald Trump just let him get away with it.
Yeah, I think that all this idea of giving money to bribe them to clean their own air, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, we don't know how those money are spent. They spend, our money. We gave it to them to for the clean air. They probably spend those money to build missiles.
And why not? And why
Yeah,
not?
we let them, right?
Yeah, if you want to give us the money the to buy the bullets to shoot you, we'll do just that. Okay. But that's just how we see it. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe they actually cleaned up the air. But if you look at any photograph, you won't believe that. So, yeah, and the other thing that happened is that the White House released President Donald Trump's national security strategy on 5 December,
Yep, I like
touting,
that. 2025.
yep, and touting his role in the United States shift in its relationship with China and previewing his strategy to regain dominance in the Indo-Pacific and elsewhere via financial incentives. Well,
Yep.
this is
Well,
interesting.
we have. I believe the reports that the United States GDP is 30 trillion, and our allies in Asia, it's 30 together will be 35 trillion. So we are total. If U.S. Can lead our allies in the Indo-Pacific region, we our total economic capacity is 65 trillion, comparing with China's what 18 around 18 trillion. So we're almost double of China's economic power. If we can consolidate our relations with our allies in this region, we will win. We'll win this.
Well, the report said that President Trump single-handedly reversed more than 3 decades of mistaken American assumptions about China. Might have something to do with pandas, I'm not sure. China got rich and powerful and used its wealth and power to considerable advantage. American elites, the report said, over 4 successive administrations of both political parties were either willing enablers of China's strategy or in denial thereof. The president's strategy for a reversal relies on American dominance in key technologies and defense equipment, a strong capital market, and coordination with allies with similar values. According to the document, U.S.-China trade has been imbalanced from the beginning. And now the Chinese regime has recycled perhaps 1.3 trillion of its trade surpluses to loan to other countries. This is the regime's flagship Belt and Road Initiative, through which the loans are then used to contract Chinese companies to build energy, transportation, and strategic infrastructure. China's state-led and state-backed companies excel in building physical and digital infrastructure, the report says. You know, that's what Donald Trump was a builder. And,
Yeah,
I,
contractor in New York City.
yes, in the toughest place in the world to build stuff, and he was a builder there. And I imagine, as a builder, he looks at how the United States has given up the entire world to China in terms of just about everything, building everything. And it must be humiliating to him as a builder and as a president to see. And so we're going to change, but I have a question.
Well,
What is,
that's why he imposed the tariffs to try to bring everything, all the manufacture coming back to the United States.
yes. What we need are American dominance in key technologies and defense equipment. Probably doing pretty good there. I don't know for sure. A strong capital market. Now that's something that how can you have a strong capital market and be $33 trillion in the hole?
Well, we spend too much. That's the problem, right? I think that the tariffs is a good starter. Hopefully later, the economy start rolling, and hopefully, the government debts are going to go down. I don't know. I don't have any. I, I don't have any estimate. The economy is something that's really beyond my expertise.
Um, well, it's probably, beyond most everybody's expertise. Hopefully, Scott Bassett has a handle on things because it seems to me he just might have a handle. I don't know. Well, let's see. We're going into the holiday season here in the United States. Wondering, Nansu, what kind of holidays do the traditional Chinese people celebrate as they go into a new year and a new cycle of the sun, as it were?
Yeah, it's going to just here, like here, what we celebrate is from Halloween to January 1st, but in China, they're immediately after that. That's the period they're going to celebrate from January 1st to the Lunar New Year, actually through the Lunar New Year, the 15th. That will, that's probably, I believe next year, the Chinese New Year, I forgot, it's like a February 17th or something. So, then the 15th of Chinese New Year, Chinese calendar, that will be, wow, that will be in March. That's like 2 months of celebrations.
Okay. So the Chinese people celebrate as well. Now, have those traditions carried through into the communist era?
Well, they celebrate the holidays, but they don't have They don't have it's true. Next year, February 17th will be the next Chinese New Year, Lunar New Year, and so they don't celebrate the Saint birth. It's a holiday. It's basically they just eat, but they don't believe anything the tradition believes
Uh,
anymore.
so
It's
the
like somebody come tell it's somebody come tells you that yeah, celebrate the Thanksgiving. It's a big day, so you can eat whatever you want, and you can eat a lot of turkeys. That's all they do. That's all they tell you to do. They totally forget the meaning behind it.
no giving thanks on Thanksgiving, just eating a lot of turkey.
Well, that's it.
And I suspect the same is true with Christmas. I've seen video
Well,
of,
China doesn't celebrate Christmas. They used to for several years because of the economic during their economic growth period. Uh, Probably somewhere between 2000 and 2015. And then in the recent years, they have been banning the Christmas celebrations in China.
what kind of celebrations do communists have?
They will celebrate the National Day. That's October 1st. They will celebrate the August 1st as the anniversary of Chinese military, and July 1st as the as the anniversary for the Chinese Communist Party. And then they have the Labor Day celebration. That's on May 1st. That's the Communist Labor Day. Of course, they will have holidays on January 1st. That's the solar calendar New Year, and the Chinese New Year. I think those are the important days that the communist regime will allow people to celebrate in every year.
Hmm. And what is left of the classic Confucian ethic in the era of the Chinese Communist Party?
Well, they actually allowed you to celebrate some of those days. Again, they don't really celebrate the traditional spirit, like a Dragon Ball festival. The Dragon Ball festival is supposed to celebrate uh, an ancient poet who was a patriot and loved Chinese culture, and loved because he lived like about what 1,200 years ago. At that time, China was broken to like uh 40, 50 small kingdoms. And he loved his small kingdoms, and then he jumped to the river after his kingdom was taken over by another bigger kingdom. So he wrote a beautiful poets, and there's a lot of culture behind those poets, like how do you um, traditional Chinese culture. It's all about heaven and humanity, how they connect them together. So he was one of those very smart, thoughtful poet who wrote a lot of uh, beautiful poems around these connections. But nowadays, they will do the Dragon Ball contest. They will eat all these sweet rice food that people usually eat during the Dragon Ball festival. But they don't talk about all this Taoist culture anymore.
Connecting heaven with humanity.
That's
Now,
yeah, that's the Taoist culture is about because the Chinese people in Chinese culture, the ancestors of Chinese people, they we don't have a religion in China. That's the issue. We never had any religion to start with. So the Taoist philosopher were the ones that they are doing backwards engineering, trying to connect the humanity and the nature to the nature and then to the creator. So that's how the entire Taoist philosophy was built up, to trying to look for the connections between humanity and the ultimate spirit of the creator through observing how the nature was created. There's a lot of those things in the poem and written by the poet,
and there it
and
was, right?
but
That's what I
people do
liked
not
about. That's what I
really
liked
talk
about.
about those anymore.
That's what I loved about studying Chinese poetry. It was beautiful in that respect. But there is no more heaven in China. It's been debunked and deloused and gone by the
It's
Chinese
because
Communist
the
Party.
communist leader Xi Jinping is atheist, right?
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been China Now. We want to thank you for joining us and tune in next week. Who knows what exciting news we'll have for you then.
Attention content producers. You can have access to a complete digital media production facility at Satellite Co-working and Digital Media Studio on Socal Avenue. Easily rent video and audio equipment, a studio with green screen, editing suite, and audio booth, all at can't say no rates. Schedule a tour to see for yourself at satellitecoworking.com. Mention Santa Cruz Voice for 20% off your first reservation.
Cannabis is one of nature's most beneficial plants. Hello, I'm Jenna. Treehouse Dispensary, we use information about cannabis to build community. Listen to Xavier.
Thank you, Jenna. For those suffering joint pain, Treehouse suggests trying a CBD THC topical like the Balance Salve from local Santa Cruz company, Jade Nectar. Then enjoy the relief.
For answers to your cannabis questions, ask your friends at Treehouse Dispensary, 3651 Socal Drive in Socal, or ourtreehouse.io.
Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-704-1662. 800-704-1662. That's 800-704-1662.
Bring happiness into your holiday with a fresh and fragrant Lions Club Christmas tree. When you light up the tree, your family's smile will last into January. Pick up your tree from the Lions Club lot at the Portuguese Hall near Costco. 2 to 7 weekdays, 10 to 7 weekends, while they last. Bring happiness into your holiday with a fresh and fragrant Lions Club Christmas tree. All proceeds go to helping those in need in Santa Cruz.